Thank you for joining us today. It's the last live event of the year.
Can you believe it, Corbin?
I cannot believe it. I know when we started the year, we started doing these live events actually almost exactly a year from today. Our first one was, right around the Christmas holidays, and was our very first one. We've done several since then, so now we are on our last one of 2021.
We have officially made it through 1 year. We're planning 22 as we speak, too.
Absolutely.
So,
so definitely keep in tune. Of course, continue to follow us here on Facebook, and you'll find those announcements on our next live events. So again, thank you for joining us today, and a happy Friday. Of course, we do have the holidays coming up, so we hope everyone has a wonderful holiday and a Merry Christmas. Michael, you want to talk about a little bit what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, Corbin. In fact, this is kind of going to be an overview of some things that we've actually covered this past year. We'll try to put a little different spin on it during the presentation. And today's going to be a little bit different too, in that we're going to have several visuals that we'll be taking a look at as well. So I always like to, if I can see it, it helps me to understand a little bit better as well. And we're just going to talk about some key factors that we need to consider in maintaining a healthy hoof.
Absolutely.
And a healthy hoof is very important for many, many reasons. And the old saying is this: if you've got a good, sound, healthy foot or a hoof, then you're less likely to have these secondary issues such as thrush, a wall separation, or an abscess or whatever.
Absolutely.
And there are many ways that we can go about improving a hoof if we do have issues with it, and then we'll talk about some of the things that we can do to address those issues. Yeah.
And as Mike said, today is a little bit of an overview. Like I said, we've done several live events throughout the year, and some on very specific topics such as thrush, white line disease, hoof abscesses. So if you really want an in-depth presentation on one of those subjects, you can actually go to our videos here on Facebook and rewatch one of those. I've seen a couple people ask whether or not this is being recorded. This will be available to watch afterwards. We do encourage you to watch it live here. You watch it live, you're able to ask questions. And of course, we have our live giveaways that we do for those who are watching live.
Sure.
Of course, the giveaways are for the U.S. viewers only. I know we have some international viewers today. We apologize for that inconvenience, but unfortunately, due to those international laws, we're unable to do those giveaways. But we have a fun day planned, a lot of information.
We do.
So stay tuned, and if you have a question, feel free to drop that in the comments. We have a lot of people on today. We have a lot of people who are going to be joining us, so we may not be able to get to everybody's questions, but we will do our best to answer those. And if we don't answer it right away, we might be going to discuss that a little bit later on.
Sure.
So you want to talk about giveaways a little bit?
Absolutely. In fact, as we go through the presentation, I'll have 3 different questions that I've selected. They're going to be easy. I've covered those. And then we'll ask the question at the appropriate time, and we'll give you 2 minutes to respond back. And after the 2 minutes, then we will randomly draw that winner for that particular prize during the live event. And you want to tell them what that would be?
So for those of you who are watching live, you'll have those 2 minutes, as Mike said, to answer that question. And what we're going to do is we're going to take everyone who answered it correctly, and we're going to randomly choose someone, and that person is going to win one of our Fairies Formula caps, one of these Life Data t-shirts, a Life Data Hoof Clay, which we'll talk about a little bit more during the presentation, a Fairies Finish, and then a Breeder's Formula, which is actually our canine supplement, which is going to help with itchy skin, and of course some of those nervous behavior dogs as well. So that's also a really great product to have, and so we'll give away that to 3 different people as this presentation goes on. We have 3 questions, and then on top of that we have our grand prize giveaway, which is going to be a bag of the Fairies Formula Double Strength, a finish, and a clay. The giveaway link is scrolling down here at the bottom. You can just go to lifedata.live/win. and that will take you to the contest page where you can, we have some different things that you can do to earn points. Every single one of those items will earn you a certain amount of entries. The more you do, the better chance you have at winning. So we have that going on as well. Of course, we have the secret code, which we will give at the end of the presentation, which will basically double your entries.
And how long are entries open for the grand prizes?
So the grand prize giveaway, that one is actually open to anyone who watches from now until Tuesday at noon. So you have till noon on Tuesday to enter in that contest. And like I said, this is Farrier's Formula Double Strength Finish and Clay. That's a good little package there. So it's a real good win for 3 different people.
All right. And if you'd like to join us Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Yes, we will announce the winner.
And if there's any questions that we didn't get to, that would give us an opportunity to address those as well.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder, if you do receive a message from anyone trying to pretend to be us, asking for credit card information or anything on those lines, that is not us. We will never, ever ask for credit card information from you. So that is not us. Ignore that if you do get that reported.
Sure.
Well, Mike, I think that's enough of an overview. You ready to dive in a little bit?
We're ready to get started, Corbin.
All right.
Okay, well, and if Mr. Will would go ahead and pull up slide number 1 for us, we'd appreciate that. And we thank Mr. Will for being with us.
Absolutely.
And keeping us going live.
Absolutely.
Number 1.
Couldn't do it without him.
So as you can see here, we're going to take a look at some factors that's going to affect the hoof. It's going to affect the hoof as far as quality. It's going to affect the hoof as far as hoof growth itself. Okay? So we need hoof growth, yes. But one of the most important things that we need a good, sound, quality foot. In other words, if you have a horse that has a hoof that is chipping, that's cracking, that has quarter cracks, that has sand cracks, grass cracks, that has thin soles, thin hoof walls, won't hold a shoe, is lame on the hard surface, then that is definitely not a quality foot that we're looking for. And so what we're going to try to do during the presentation is to point out some things that you can do as a horse owner to help improve that situation, to get the best foot possibly underneath your horse.
Absolutely.
Okay? And of course the old saying is, no foot, no horse. And especially if you have a competitive horse, very important that you have 4 good wheels under the horse to keep that keep that horse going. And of course, the first thing that you see at the top of the list, you'll see genetics. We'll just touch that. We'll spend a little time on health, exercise, the age of the horse. You may not realize this, and we'll point out some things concerning the age of the horse. A young horse versus an older horse and what changes are actually taking place there. The environment plays a tremendous role.
Absolutely.
As far as the overall quality of the foot itself. Of course, the farrier plays a key role in all of this. That farrier is responsible for maintaining the balance of the foot. We need to be on a regular schedule. And of course, you have a lot of mechanics there that the farrier's involved with as well. And then the last thing that you'll see on our list is nutrition. Highly important.
Absolutely.
And I guess if we had to select 2 from the list here to get the best foot genetically possible underneath our horse, I'd have to take a look at the environment, and I'd have to take a look at nutrition. And as a horse owner, if you will focus on those 2 areas, then that's going to allow you and the horse to end up with this good quality foot genetically possible.
Absolutely.
Okay?
And a better hoof for that farrier to work on.
Absolutely, right. And a foot that's going to hold the shoe during reset, between resets as well. All right, Mr. Will, if you'll go to number 2, please. This was the first thing on our list, and that was genetics. And the thing about genetics is this, we can't change what we've got. And a lot of times we fail to select our horses based upon hoof quality, foot quality, or horn quality, if you want to call it that. And what we're more concerned about in a lot of the times is how fast will the horse run if it's a racehorse? How fancy is that movement? What type of gait does the horse have? Is it appropriate for that different particular event? How high can the horse jump? We focus on those, and we fail to focus upon what's really important, and that's the foot of the horse.
The hoofs aren't necessarily the fancy part of the horse,
That's
right?
right. Sure, right. Okay, Mr. Will, if you'll go to slide number 3, please. And the next thing I'd like to talk about is health. It's highly important that we maintain the health of our horses. And when I say health, we're talking about a routine vaccination program. We're talking about a deworming program as well. And a lot of times and I'm guilty of this myself, is that I worm on a regular basis, but one of the things that I fail to do is work with my vet in taking fecal samples. And that fecal sample will tell us the true story as to whether or not we do have parasites in our horse, and it'll also tell us the appropriate wormer to use, and we're not like taking a shot in the dark with a particular wormer. But one of the things that that really pops out today here in this country, and actually around the world too, is that a lot of our horses are affected health-wise simply because they're obese, they're overweight.
Absolutely.
And if you look at this particular slide here, in 1990, the National Animal Health Monitoring System estimated that only 5% of the horses in this country were overweight at that point in time. Now, some recent studies that were done by some local states such as Virginia and North Carolina, there's been some international studies done, and as you can see the numbers there, the sad thing is that approximately 50% of the horses in this country are overweight. And what does that do health-wise? We are very familiar with the words Cushing's, insulin resistant, equine metabolic syndrome, laminitis. All those are tied together with the obese, the overweight horses. And of course, this extra weight that that horse is having to carry is going to work upon the foot of the horse as well.
Absolutely.
Okay? Okay, Will, how about slide number 4 now, please? And of course, when we talk about obese horses, I think we need to have a good understanding as to whether or not you as a horse owner fully understand whether or not your horse is overweight. And Dr. Henneke out of Texas A&M several years ago developed a system, a scale that ranges anywhere from 1 to 9, and we call it a body condition score. And the first example here is on the low end, and this is a body condition score of 1. As you can see, this horse is nutritionally starved. We can actually see the skeletal system of this horse is what we're looking at, okay? And so what we need to do is we should strive for a goal that's somewhere in the middle there. And what we're shooting for is a body condition score of at least a 5 to 6. And are we looking at, go to slide 5. Thank you, Will. All right, this is a body condition score of 5. This is a nice, beautiful horse here. Horse has got all kind of length, nice conformation, nice neck, nice head about it, and the neckline is tied very well into the shoulder there. And this is what we're looking for. This is what we're shooting for. This somewhere in the 5 to 6 range. And this horse does have some condition on it. If we felt the tail head, we can find some softness there as well, okay? We can actually feel some condition as far as the ribs itself. And of course, they're not just readily visible, you know, that we don't want that to be seen as well. And then as we go up the scale and we get to a body condition score of a 7, that's where we say our horses are at the point of becoming obese overweight. But there is a group of horses that really need to be in a group 7, and that would be our brood mares.
Absolutely.
So if you have a brood mare that's producing a foal on a yearly basis, then if we could keep that mare in about a 7, that would be great as far as her being able to breed back at the appropriate time and maintain the condition that she needs as she cares the foal and after she has foaled to actually feed the foal then itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, slide number 6, Will. And this is our extreme here. Body condition score of a number 9. And we hope that none of you, as a horse owner, has a horse that looks like this, okay? And this is our problem horse, as I just said. And if you take a look at this horse, this is a very over-conditioned. It's an extremely fat horse. If you look at the neck, it's extremely thick. We have a little crestiness there. And if this horse already doesn't have some type of a metabolic program, it's headed down the path for that, Corbin, okay? And so what can we do to pull the weight off of this overweight horse, okay? What does this horse not need, Corbin? What would we take away from this horse?
Calories.
Calories, okay? And so we've got to have some type of a feeding program where we can separate calories from the nutrients that a horse needs.
Absolutely.
All right? Something else that we can do if the horse is able to exercise, be wonderful if we started that. And the other thing that we need to do, and we've already kind of hinted on this, is that we need to go back to the basic diet of the horse. For hundreds of years, and even today, the basic diet of the horse is grass. It's always been that way, okay? And so if we'll go back to a forage, hay, and then some type of a forage balancer such as barn bag, then that gives us the opportunity to separate the calories that this horse does not need from the nutrients that that horse does need on a daily basis. And we run into a problem if we're trying to feed a complete feed, a fortified feed, so to speak. And that is the nutrients and the calories are tied together. We cannot separate those. If we realize our horse is becoming overweight and we cut back on the amount of feed, then what we're doing is we're reducing calories, but we're reducing the nutrients that that horse needs as well.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of in a no-win situation there. All right? So I think we're actually ready for question number 1. We're at that point.
All right, you want to do the first giveaway question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, everybody, so this is going to be our first giveaway, live giveaway. Again, this is for the U.S. only. Due to those international laws, we just are unable to do giveaways internationally. But we're going to ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to answer that question, and then we're going to randomly select someone who answered it correctly, and they're going to win the Farrier's Formula ball cap. We've got the T-shirt, the finish, the clay, and of course the breeder's formula. So we got the questions right here.
We'll let you answer. Ask that question, Corbin, please.
And of course, you know, we always talk about, you know, Mike is really bad about giving away these answers in the middle of his presentation. So this one right here,
it's pretty easy.
I remember this one.
Okay.
All right. So question number 1: it is estimated that blank % of the U.S. horse population is overweight. So how much of is the estimate horse population currently overweight?
In this country.
In this country. So you have 2 minutes to answer that. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions for Mike, feel free to drop them in, and we will take a look at them. Now, Mike, you know, of course, we've talked about, you know, of course, the obesity of the horse and the weight of the horse. Can you go into a little bit more details on how the weight will directly affect the hoof?
Well, you have added added strain, number one, to the hoof capsule itself. Number two, if that horse is thin-soled and has a thin hoof wall, this added weight is going to want to cause that foot to pancake out, so to speak. And when that happens, you have some stretching and separation in the white line area, and that simply becomes an entry point for bacteria and fungi to take a hold to enter the hoof capsule itself. Of course, this added weight, just like a human, it's going to take that horse down a path that you don't want that horse to go, and you're going to end up with some insulin resistance or Cushing's disease or equine metabolic syndrome. And all of those will directly affect the foot of the horse. So you're having to deal with the overweight horse, you're having to deal with that hormonal disorder, and then you're having to struggle at maintaining a good foot under the horse.
Absolutely.
So if we can maintain the right body condition score and keep that, then that's where we need to be. In other words, it's a whole lot easier to prevent it than to have to deal with it in a full-blown situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you know, as we're, I guess, dealing with this overweight horse and maybe trying to back the weight off, as you mentioned, you can get some hoof cracks and different things like that due to that. And I know for us, the number one thing we recommend for the hoof cracks is the Life Data Hoof Clay, which brings me into the next question from Laura, who would like to know, can you use the clay on the coronary band and band after it's all done draining? So I guess she's actually talking about the abscesses, which again is also
we're making the assumption that we have an abscess that has ruptured at the coronary band. To answer the question, is yes, you can use it once it has completely quit draining. Now, if you need some type of an antimicrobial to use in the meantime while it is draining, you can use Fairies Finish, which is our liquid product as well.
Absolutely.
You can go that route until it quits draining and then use the clay after it has completely stopped. Sure.
All right. Fantastic. Well, I believe our 2 minutes is up. Let me look over here at Mr. Will. He's going to let me know the winner here.
See the answer?
Yes, and the answer is 50%.
Yep.
So 50% of the U.S. population is estimated to be overweight, and the winner is...
The winner is Ron Conley.
Ron Conley. Congratulations, Ron. You can email cservice@lifedatalabs.com. Again, that is cservice@lifedatalabs.com. And we will need to, you can put in the subject line, live giveaway winner. We will need your t-shirt size and your shipping address. So send that over to us, and then, like I said, we get a ball cap, t-shirt, a clay finish, and a breeder's formula.
Sure.
So,
all right.
Well, Mike, as we know, when we have these overweight horses, one of the best way to get the weight off is exercise.
That's right.
Right?
And exercise is highly important for the overweight horse and for any horse.
Any horse, exactly. So, and let's talk about exercise and how that works in with not only the weight, but also the hoof.
Okay. Exercise is going to do two things. It's going to help improve the growth, and it's really in the end help improve the quality of the foot itself. And you might ask, well, how does it do that? Well, anytime you're exercising, you're increasing the heart rate of the horse. That increases blood flow. That increases the metabolic rate within that horse itself. And what this blood is doing, it's carrying the nutrients to the individual cells within that hoof capsule itself to feed the cell, to maintain the cell, to help maintain this strong bond there, actually just to feed the foot. So not only is the added blood supply and flow going to do that, but it's going to provide the needed oxygen as well to the hoof capsule itself. So exercise is important. It's going to just overall improve the metabolic rate. Anytime that we're going to do that, we're going to help increase hoof growth at that point in time. There are studies that will show that an active horse is going to have more hoof growth than one that's non-active, that's standing in the stall.
Okay.
We know that firsthand, okay?
Absolutely.
And Will, how about slide number 8 now, please? And when we talk about the age of the horse, and sometimes we don't realize this, I often hear people will make, or horse owners will make the comment to me that my horse is about 10, 11, 12 years old, and I just don't have the hoof growth that I did at one point in time. Well, there is a reason for that. And if you look at this particular chart here, it kind of gives us an idea of how quickly the foot actually grows. And this information was put together by Dr. Doug Butler, and it was pulled out of the book that he published called The Principles of Horseshoeing. But if you look at the top line there, you'll see foals, and out to the far right, you'll see inches per month. Mm-hmm. That foal, on average, is going to grow over about 6/10 of an inch of foot per month, okay? That yearling is going to be at about 5/10 or 1/2 of an inch. The mature horse is going to be at about 0.33, and the aged horse is going to be at about 0.25 or 1/4 of an inch on a monthly basis. So what this is telling us that young horse grows foot much quicker than that aged horse. Mm-hmm. And as we reach that magic point, whether that's 10, 11, 12 years, then that foot is as far as the growth itself will slow down. That's just a natural process that takes place. You might ask, well, what's the difference? What's going on? I think some of that has to do with the metabolism of the horse. I think some of that has to do with the fact that the horse is not able to absorb and utilize like it done at a younger age what we're actually feeding the horse. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem itself there. And of course, as these horses get older, some of them become pasture ornaments, and there's little to no exercise that's being done there as well. Absolutely. Okay?
Quick question for you, Mike.
Okay.
Gloria here would like to know, is that information without supplements?
This would be just on feed.
Okay.
Just feed, okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
So, what? And another reason too that young horse grows foot faster is that young horse, the heart rate, that young horse has a higher heart rate. Okay. And of course, the higher heart rate is pushing more blood, increasing the metabolic. Is what we're looking for as well. Now and when we talk about foals, there is a difference in how quick the front feet grows versus the hind feet. And in foals, the hind feet will grow 12% faster than front feet. And when that foal becomes a weanling, then the hind feet will grow 7% faster than the front feet. And then as the horse matures, then that will balance out and even out at that point in time. All right? Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Will, slide number 9 for me, please. We're going to talk about another factor that works against hoof quality, and that's the environment. And when we talk about the environment, we're talking about the external temperature. We're talking about daylight hours. We're talking about wet conditions. We're talking about dry conditions. We're talking about bacteria, and we're talking about fungi. Mm-hmm. So we know that as our days, the sunlight shortens, as the temperatures cool down, then growth rate will slow down as far as the hoof itself during the winter months. When spring gets here, daylight lengthens, temperature increases, that rate will increase then as far as hoof growth.
We just had someone ask that question about whether or not the environment or whether or not the season.
That makes a difference as well. Now, simply because we don't have as much hoof growth during the winter months as the spring and the summer, should we just forget about our horse?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, because we are still getting hoof growth, yes. It's not at the same rate as in the spring and the summer, but that foot still needs to be trimmed and it still needs to be kept balanced during the winter months as well.
And it's still being exposed to the environment during that time as well.
And as we look at this particular hoof capsule here, it is suffering from some wet conditions there. And if this foot had been completely cleaned off before the picture was actually taken, especially in the white line area, we'll see some stretching there that's going on. And when that hoof capsule becomes extremely wet, it becomes soft over a period of time. And that's when the hoof wall loses its integrity, it loses its strength, and that's when we have the separation and the problem in the white line area to take place. Of course, anytime the hoof wall is softened, it's at a weaker point, and if that horse is being shod, then it's much easier for that horse to pull a shoe at that point in time as well. So bacteria, fungi, the wet conditions, and going from wet to dry and wet to dry really takes a toll on the foot of the horse itself. All right?
Absolutely.
And this was an example of a wet foot. If we will go to slide number 10, we're going to see right the opposite there. And this is an extreme dry, brittle foot. You see the cracking that's going on. In fact, anytime we're in extreme dry conditions, that hoof capsule wants to do right the opposite. It wants to contract. And as it tries to contract, it wants to chip and crack. And you can see what has happened to this particular hoof capsule itself. In fact, this foot actually had a shoe on it at one point in time. And because of the dryness and because of the brittleness, the horse actually pulled the shoe. And in the process there, it's ripped part of the hoof wall out. And that creates a problem when the farrier has to come back and try to re-nail, and he's lost the integrity of that foot itself. But we have two products at Life Data Labs, and we've hit on those already to some point. We have the hoof clay that can be used for specific problem areas, such as a chip, a crack, wall separation, underneath the shoe, old nail holes. And then the other product, the Fairies Finish, is a liquid product, and it's a product that has the same antimicrobial properties as the clay, but it has the added benefit in that it's going to help with the wet and with the dry conditions. It's going to help regulate that moisture within that hoof capsule and maintain the needed moisture there.
I've had several questions regarding the wet environments and protecting that hoof in the wet environments. I know, as you just said, Fairies Finish is a good part of that. But can you take us through a step-by-step of, the best way to take care of that hoof during those wet conditions?
Sure. And of course, the ideal foot to apply any topical to is going to be a dry foot. And of course, I realize if you're in a wet area, then that's hard to deal with a lot of times. But if you have an area where you can actually pull that horse in out of the wet, allow that foot to dry, and especially if you have a stall, and in fact, if it's got some pretty deep shavings in it, if you'll let that horse stand in the stall for a little while, those shavings will help pull out that excess moisture from the hoof capsule itself. We're going to clean the foot. And one of the most important tools that any horse owner can have is that hoof pick right there. And we need to wear the hoof pick out, okay? That's what we need to do. And if we'll constantly pick up and clean those feet, then we're less likely to have the bacterial and fungal issues as well, such as thrush. But anyway, after we have picked out, cleaned out, brushed off the foot, we can actually use the clay first if we got some wall separation, or if we got some chips or cracks, use the clay first. And then we're going to take the Fairies Finish and we're going to coat the entire sole of the foot, and then we're going to cover the entire hoof wall. Under extreme conditions, we're going to do that about every other day, okay? Under normal conditions, if you're using the finish, 1 to 2 times a week is sufficient, okay? The hoof clay is intended to be used about every 3 to 4 days. Once you make an application of this, you'll have enough residual left to help fight off the bacterial infection or fungal infection that might be present. Of course, if that horse is in extremely wet conditions, you will have to increase the frequency with the clay itself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think another important thing to mention is, if you are using a topical, maybe it's not Fairies Finish, maybe it's something else, you always want to make sure that topical is non-caustic.
Right.
Don't ever put anything on your horse's hoofs that will burn, that has those caustic chemicals in it. But that's something I know if you guys have watched this before, I think we talk about that every single time we come on here. But it's so important to stay away from those caustic chemicals.
Basically, you'll set yourself up for a cycle of bacterial infection.
And if you are struggling with, with thrush specifically, we actually have a previous live event that you can go back and watch. It's about an hour long, and we dive deep into what's causing it and all of that. So make sure to check that out after this one.
Okay. Mr. Will, slide number 11, please. All right, we're going to talk about nutrition now. Nutrition is extremely important, just like controlling the environmental factors that's working against the foot of the horse. And our goal as a horse owner from a nutritional standpoint would be to feed a balanced diet. And you might ask, well, what is a balanced diet? And that's a good question. There's 5 components that we need to take a look at when we're talking about a balanced diet. The first one is protein. The next one is energy. Energy is the same thing as calories. We need to take a look at vitamins, amino acids, and minerals. Those 5 things: protein, energy, vitamins, amino acids, and minerals. And if we are deficient, or if we have an excess in any of those 5, then we have an unbalanced diet. That unbalanced diet is going to work on the entire horse. It's going to work on the foot of the horse as well. What does an unbalanced diet do, or an inadequate diet? Well, you're going to see it in the hair coat, hair condition. A lot of times it's going to be dull, okay? The horse may not be as thrifty, as active, as alert as it was at one point in time. It may not be able to compete like it did at one point in time because of an inadequate diet. And then if that inadequate diet is directly affecting the foot of the horse, then we're going to end up with issues there such as lameness that we've got to deal with. So our goal is a balanced diet, number 1. We need to look at those 5 areas there that we've talked about. And in our next slides, what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at some specific cases where we either have an excess or deficiency, say such as in energy or vitamins or an amino acid or even in minerals itself, okay? I think we're ready for question number 2 now.
Question number 2. Okay, so this is the live giveaway question number 2. We're going to ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to answer it. And then one of you who has answered that question correctly will be randomly chosen to win our little live prize pack, which is the hat, the t-shirt, clay, finish, and the breeder's formula. And again, the finish in clay is great, especially for all those commenting about the moisture or dry environments or so on. These are great for that. So definitely something you'll want to win. So question number 2, what age group of horses will have the quickest hoof growth?
Or fastest hoof growth.
What age group of horses will have the fastest or quickest hoof growth? You have 2 minutes. In the meantime, I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
All right. Well, we talked about the wet environment.
Mm-hmm.
Someone wants to know about the dry. They're in
Okay.
Texas.
Okay. The dry can be just as detrimental as the wet, simply because that hoof capsule is going to want to contract.
Mm-hmm.
In that contraction process, you're going to end up with some chipping and cracking. A lot of times, if the horse is shod, it's more likely to pull that shoe between resets or whatever. And that's where the Farriers Finish comes into play, and that it's going to, when you make the application about every 3 or at least every other day in a dry condition, it's going to help keep that hoof wall pliable and supple. It's going to allow it to move and expand.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're after there.
So that Fairies Finish is going to help with both those wet environments and getting rid of the moisture, and then also those dry environments and keeping in the
That's
moisture.
right. And then the other thing that it's going to do, it's going to fight off any bacteria or fungi that's going to be on the outside of the hoof capsule itself. Of course, anytime that hoof capsule is stressed, whether that's wet or whether that's dry, then that gives bacteria an opportunity to invade the hoof capsule. And anytime that we have that to happen, then we're going to end up with the A word, abscess. Okay?
Absolutely. Let's see. Someone would like to know on recommendations with the hoof clay in extremely wet environments.
The hoof clay, you'll just have to use a little more frequency if it's extremely wet. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the best foot is going to be a dry foot, number one. And if you can put into practice some measures to help dry the foot before you actually make the application of clay, that would be great as well.
Absolutely. Anytime you have those wet environments, you're probably going to have to add those topicals a little bit more frequently.
That's right. You're going to just have to increase the frequency there in those situations, right?
Okay. And then Sandra here would like to know about, she's got a thin sole horse. What's best to get his feet to thicken?
Okay. Nutrition is going to do that. Okay. We're going to need to feed a balanced diet, number one. We want to make sure that that horse is in the right body condition, somewhere around a 5 or 6. And then in a situation like that, we need to take a look at adding a hoof supplement on top of what she's feeding. And of course, the product that we offer here at Life Data Labs is Farriers Formula. It's a product that's been around for 40 plus years now. It's the #1 hoof supplement recommended by farriers in the U.S. And it's the only supplement in the U.S. that I know of that actually has some clinical independent testing done on it and actually published in the veterinary record.
Absolutely.
So it's just a good, sound, solid product.
And we're going to dive more into nutrition and how nutrition is going to help grow that hoof and help thicken that sole. We did a presentation. I know I keep referring to past presentations, but again, this is a little bit of an overview. But we did do a presentation a few months ago. It was called Good for the Sole, and we dove into everything that had to do with soles.
Sure.
So definitely check that one out if you're fighting those thin soles and looking at growing out that sole.
Right.
And because that one was a really great presentation, especially for those horse owners that might have those thin soles or fighting laminitis or have a situation like that.
And what Farriers Formula is going to do as you feed the product, it's going to internally improve the inside of the hoof capsule. And as it regrows that foot, it's going to thicken that hoof wall, number one. It's going to thicken the sole of the foot, number two, and that's what we're after in these thin-soled horses. Absolutely. Especially if they're a little ouchy on the hard surface then.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, one other thing too, Corbin, it's not an overnight fix either.
Absolutely.
It's going to take at least 2, maybe 3 months to start this new hoof growth that's going to emerge at the coronary band. And then it's going to take another 7, 8, 9 months to completely regrow the old problem foot out and replace it with a new foot. Sometimes we want to think that if I have a hoof problem, I can put something on it and it's going to heal it right up. That's not the case in most cases. Most of the time we have to grow the old foot out with all of our problems and replace it with this new sound foot.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely. I'm going to do one more question, and then I'll announce the winner.
Announce the winner, okay.
Well, then we can move on. Oh, I just lost it. Will the Hoof Clay help with cracked frog from Thrush?
Yes, it will. The finish will also help you as well. So either product would be very great.
I know the clay is one of your most favorite products.
I
to
really
use
like
in
the
particular
clay it
for the
myself. In
Thrush.
fact, I use both products together. I use the clay first in those specific problems, and then I coat the entire foot with the finish then. Yes. All right.
Okay, so the answer to our question number 2, what age group of horses will have the quickest hoof growth? And that is foals.
That is correct.
Foals. And we have a winner, and that is Christine Carter. Congratulations, Christine. And you will email us at cservice@lifedatalabs.com. In the subject line, you can just put live giveaway winner. We'll need your t-shirt size and your shipping address. And you'll win, again, the hat, the t-shirt, finish, clay, and the breeder's formula. And we still have one more live giveaway.
We do.
And then on top of that, we have our grand prize giveaway,
Right.
which is available to those who are not watching live and watching a little bit later on. That's going to run through Tuesday, and that link has actually been scrolling down at the bottom of your screen this entire presentation. So, and we're going to have the secret code here a little bit later. Okay, Mike.
Are we ready to move on?
Let's look at some of these deficiencies.
That's right. Okay, so Corbin, how about slide number 12, please? All right, what we're going to do now, we're going to look at some specific cases where we either have an excess or we have a deficiency here. And as we take a look at this particular foot here, you can see the crumbling hoof corn. It looks like it's just kind of falling apart, especially in and around the hoof nails there. You see the collapsed heels that are back in the heel area as well. Basically, we've got some very poor hoof quality here that we're looking at. And the problem in this particular foot came about simply because the horse owner was feeding bran. B-R-A-N, bran. And of course, bran is simply a byproduct of the grain industry. Okay, we have a lot of horse owners that like to feed it. But I would caution you from the standpoint is that if you have a horse that has poor quality feed, I would not feed the horse bran. And there is a reason for that. Bran is extremely high in phytates. Phytates are extremely high in phosphorus. Now, we're talking about either a deficiency or an excess here, okay? And so what we're ending up doing, we're getting too much phosphorus into the diet of the horse. In other words, all of you are quite familiar in maintaining the proper calcium-phosphorus ratio. Under normal conditions, that should be 1 part calcium to 1 part phosphorus. But if our phosphorus gets way off the scale, what that does is that ties up the needed calcium that that foot needs. The phosphorus ties up and the horse is not able to absorb the calcium. And we can look at calcium as being the glue that holds that foot together. So if we have lost the glue, if we have lost the attachment mechanism, then you're going to end up with a hoof capsule that we're looking at in this particular foot here. Okay?
Absolutely.
Now, you might ask the question, can we get too much calcium into the diet of the horse? And does calcium affect phosphorus? Calcium does not affect phosphorus, but what you need to be mindful of is that calcium will tie up the magnesium that the horse needs. Now, the magnesium directly works on the nervous system of the horse itself, okay? And just as a side note, a lot of our insulin-resistant horses are found to be magnesium deficient as well. just as a side note, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, Will, if you'll go to slide 13 for me, please. We're going to take a look at another excess or a toxicity problem that was created by selenium. Pretty nasty looking hoof capsule here. We have a very crusty coronary band that you're looking at. The hoof wall is extremely compromised. The hoof wall is very subject to an invasion of bacteria and fungi. Under extreme cases, or where we have extreme excess selenium, the horse can actually lose hair. It can actually shed that hoof capsule itself. A lot of times that horse is subject to laminitis as well. So this is a mineral. We have an excess here, and oftentimes a selenium toxicity problem is going to take place in the region of the U.S. where selenium is deficient in the soil. And so our horse owners are advised to supplement with selenium, and yes, you need to do that. But there is a magic number that we need to not exceed on a daily basis, and that's about 5 milligrams of selenium per day. Now, where does the selenium come from? It comes from the grass that that horse is consuming. It can come from the hay that that horse is consuming. If the feed that we're feeding has selenium in it, that's another source of selenium. And if we're feeding supplements with selenium, then that's another source. So if we put all these 4 different sources together, a lot of times we can end up with this toxicity problem here itself. Okay? Slide 14, please. We'll take a look at a vitamin. Still talking about nutrition. And this is a little strange here, vitamin A. In fact, the clinical signs of either a deficiency or an excess of vitamin A are the same. You end up with the same clinical signs. 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be a deficiency, because to have a vitamin A deficiency, we're going to have a horse that is totally neglected, that's just been put on a dry lot, no feed, no forage, no hay. And that would take some time for that to happen. But it's very easy to get too much vitamin A into the diet of the horse itself, okay? And if you'll look very closely at this particular foot here, it may be just a little hard to see, but it looks like we've got hair-like projections that are growing out from underneath the hoof wall itself. That's a telltale sign of a vitamin A, more than likely toxicity problem that's going on there, okay? Our goal is not to exceed somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 30,000 units of vitamin A per day. Now, vitamin A, a lot of times, is added to our feed that we're giving the horse. Vitamin A can be in some of the supplements that we're providing the horse. And of course, vitamin A comes about through the forage that horse is grazing, called keratin or whatever, and it converts that into vitamin A naturally itself then. All right, slide 15, please. Let's take a look at an amino acid. And if you take a look at a feed tag or a supplement tag, they're going to have the vitamins, they're going to have the minerals in them, they're going to have the amino acids. And methionine is simply a natural form of sulfur. That's all it is. Any good hoof supplement is going to have methionine in it. The foot needs sulfur, yes. Okay? Now, when we have an excess of methionine, too much, then that ties up the needed iron, copper, and zinc that foot needs. All right? Now, what's going to happen is we're going to end up with a situation where we actually think that we have a white line problem. We're going to end up with a hoof wall that's going to be compromised, that you're going to have some separation in. And we're thinking that it's white line caused from a bacterial or fungal issue, when on the other hand, if we have too much methionine, we have the same clinical signs. Now, in some of the research that has been done with this, where the excess methionine was determined when we took hoof clippings, there was no invasion of any of your microorganisms there. So methionine is a little funny in itself, okay, as far as the clinical signs, and we often confuse that. Now, there is a problem in feeding a hoof supplement that has DL-methionine in it, and a joint supplement that has MSM in it. MSM is sulfur, our methionine is sulfur. When we put the two together, we often get too much sulfur into the diet, and that's going to work on the overall quality of the foot. So one of the things that we have done here at Life Data Labs over the past, how long has it been, 8-10 years now that we've had the DS Plus joint?
It's been a while now.
We came up with a combo product that has Fairies formula in it and a joint supplement in it, 2 products in one. And that way we control the amount of sulfur that's in the product. And if you're a horse owner that's feeding, say, a hoof supplement that has the methionine in it and a joint supplement has the MSM in it, it's very easy to create an excess there and end up with poor hoof quality. You might ask, well, how much is too much? What we take a look here and suggest at Life Data Labs, somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of sulfur per day. If we exceed that, then we're exceeding the limit there altogether. Okay, Mr. Will, slide 16, please. All right, we're going to take a look at another mineral. We're still talking about nutrition, and that's a zinc deficiency. Zinc is highly important for hoof quality and for the hoof capsule itself. And with a zinc deficiency, as you can see here, the clinical signs is that we have extreme rapid hoof growth. And that hoof needs to be trimmed about every 10 to 14 days thereabout. We also know that that horse is very susceptible to canker where you have a zinc deficiency. And moving right along quickly, I know our time is about to run out. Number 17, please. We're about to reach the end. The last one is biotin, which is simply a B vitamin there. A lot of times biotin is going to be found in our hoof supplements. The last bullet point that you'll see, most of your hoof supplements are going to have about 20 milligrams of biotin on a daily basis. If you look at point 3 or bullet point 3, these are the clinical signs of a true biotin deficiency, in that you have thick layers of hardened tissue that want to peel off just like you were peeling an onion. That is a true biotin deficiency. Keep in mind that there's very few horses that are actually biotin deficient, and biotin can, or this B vitamin, can naturally be produced in the hindgut by the horse if the horse is under normal conditions and is not stressed, okay? All right, let's do question number 3, and then we're going to wind things up.
Okay, so question number 3, these are for our live viewers. I'm going to ask the question. You've got 2 minutes to answer it, and we're going to randomly pick one of those winners, one of those people to win it. And again, this is for the U.S. only. Unfortunately, it's due to international laws. Okay, an excess or deficiency of what vitamin will create the appearance of hair-like projections growing out of the hoof wall? So which one of these excesses or deficiencies will cause that hair-like projectiles? All right, Mike, in the meantime, while they're answering that, I'll ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Let's see. Again, just what order do we do that finish in clay? We had a couple questions on that.
Do the clay first. Hit your problem spots with the clay first, and then finish the foot off with the finish.
Absolutely.
Clay first, then finish.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then someone wanted to know about iron. How much is too much iron?
That is a very debatable question in itself. In fact, if you do a lot of internet research, there's a lot of things out there that we kind of question to some extent. Number one, I don't think we've had enough research that's been done or proven one way or another what excess iron will actually do in the diet of the horse. We're probably shooting for somewhere in the neighborhood of about somewhere around 300 to 400 milligrams of iron per day is what we need in a normal 1,000-pound horse on a daily basis. You know, there's some speculation that too much iron can lead to a metabolic issue or whatever. Mm-hmm. But in our opinion, that hasn't quite been proven yet one way or another.
Gotcha.
Okay, of course, iron is needed by the horse. You're going to find that in the blood of the horse. It's needed to carry the needed oxygen where it's needed to the horse as well. As far as sources of iron, of course, some feeds they'll add iron to. Some supplements have iron that's been added to it. Even the water that the horse is drinking can have iron in it as well. So you have multiple sources there, yes. But a good question, yeah. Yep. And something that we need more research done on as well.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, I believe we are out of time on the question there. So, an excess or deficiency of vitamin A will create the appearance of hair-like projections growing out of the hoof wall. So it's vitamin A, and we have a winner, and it is Julie Forrest. Congratulations, Julie. Email us at cservice@lifedatalabs.com. Let us, in the subject line, put live giveaway winner, and let us know your t-shirt size and your shipping address. And again, this is for the U.S. only. Mm-hmm. We apologize for that. And that is the last of the live giveaways, but we still have our grand prize giveaway, which we will talk about just a little bit in a little bit. I think we've got one more slide to go.
Yes, we do. Slide 18, please. Of course, we're winding up now. Let's talk about the horse owner's role now in trying to improve, maintain hoof quality. Of course, providing that horse with a balanced diet is critical. Mm-hmm. Maintaining the correct weight or body condition score is critical. Dealing with all the environmental issues that's going to work against that foot, even if that horse is on a hoof supplement such as Farrier's formula, the environment can do more harm than Farrier's formula is actually promoting, okay? Mm-hmm. Simply from the wet, dry bacteria, fungi. So the environment is highly important in addressing that. We need to take a look at the stalls that these horses are in to make sure that they're kept clean on a daily basis and we don't have a buildup of fecal matter or urine. And if that is the case, then we know that the ammonia or urea is going to be very detrimental to the sole of the foot as well. And this particular product here, Fairies Finish, has one ingredient in it to address that, and that's the yucca extract. In fact, that will bind up, tie up the ammonia, urea to protect the bottom of the foot itself. So that's another reason to use the Fairies Finish itself. Our paddocks, if we're in wet areas, if we can provide a higher dry area, that would be wonderful for these horses. Healthcare is extremely important as far as our vaccinations, our worming program. We need to maintain a regular farrier schedule. We don't need extremes when it comes to trimming the horse or having that horse reset. And as I said earlier, one of the most valuable tools that the horse owner can have is the hoof pick itself. Now you might ask, well, what role does the farrier play?
Mm-hmm.
And that farrier plays an extremely important role in that he or she needs to be part of maintaining that regular schedule. That farrier also needs to inform that horse owner if there's been any changes within that hoof capsule, such as thrush, an abscess that he or she may be thinking or seeing at that point, or we got wall separation. So the farrier needs to be an educational leg to that horse owner as well. And then one of the most important parts of a shoeing job is the trim itself. So we need to make sure that the farrier is maintaining a well-balanced foot under our horses as well.
Gotcha.
So,
And as you mentioned, the farrier. As a horse owner, don't be scared to ask those questions to your farrier, and get as much details as you can from him or her, because it's a relationship for you guys. It takes both of you, both the horse owner and the farrier, to keep that hoof healthy. The farrier is only going to see that hoof, every so many weeks, where you're going to see that hoof every day, and so it's going to take that horse owner to keep that hoof healthy in between those farrier visits, and it's going to take the farrier to keep that hoof balanced and let you know if there are problems occurring.
That's right. Sure.
So,
right.
We do have
the grand prize.
Our grand prize to talk about. We also have another event. So let's talk about this next event.
Sure.
I know today we talked a lot about nutrition. Talked a lot about nutrients and what those nutrients and different things can do when you have excesses, when you have deficiencies. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, how do I know what I'm giving my horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so our next event is going to be called "What Are You Feeding Your Horse?" Right. We're going to talk about properly reading a feed tag. We're going to talk about these more in depth with these nutrients and what nutrients that are important to your horse's diet. We're not only going to talk about how those nutrients affect the hoof, but we're also going to talk about how those nutrients affect the horse. And this is going to be, of course, our first live event of 2022. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be huge. We're going to have a lot to talk about. So we hope you can join us. You can go to lifedata.live/events. That'll take you to our Facebook page for you to register for our next event. So we hope to see you there. It's that's going to be January 14th at 2:00 p.m. Central Time.
All right.
So same time as always. And again, that's on Facebook. You can jump over there to register for that one. And we'll continue to do these giveaways and take questions and help as much as possibly as we can. So for all of you who are still with us right now, we have our grand prize giveaway. And so for 3 winners, we're going to give away a Fairies Finish double strength, a finish, and a clay. As we've talked about many times, when it comes to hoof care, it is both an external battle and an internal battle. So these 3 products right here are kind of what we consider the essentials for that hoof.
That's correct.
Especially if you're just trying to maintain hoof health or recover from something such as thrush or white line disease or an abscess. These are the first 3 products we're going to recommend 99% of the time. So we're going to give away 3 of these, and you're going to have all weekend long to register. That contest has been scrolling down at the bottom. It's lifedata.live/win. You'll see a little pop-up. You may have to accept our privacy policy to get into the contest. But once when you've done that, there are several little tasks that you can do that will earn you entries into the giveaway. You can do one of them or you can do them all. The more you do, the more chances you have to win. But some of those tasks are just like, registering for our next live event. That'll earn you some points. Sharing the contest with another individual, or our secret code. And of course, with the holidays coming around, our secret code is going to be Jingle Bells.
Jingle Bells, okay.
So Jingle Bells is the secret word, and you can pop that in there. That's going to basically double your entries. And there's a few other little objectives you can do to earn those points. I really suggest to do them all, because the more you do, the more chances you have to win. Someone would like to know, can we listen to this again? You absolutely can listen to this again, and you can listen to our past events. We actually have this recorded on YouTube as well as Facebook. If you go under our videos, you can watch them again. And we did have someone ask about, just real quick as we're closing out, the different sizes that Farrier's formula comes in.
An 11-pound vacuum seal bag. The double strength is the most economical way for you to feed Farrier's formula. Now, it is still available in the original formula in a 44-pound pail as well, but it's not as economical as the double strength in an 11-pound vacuum seal bag.
So that is going to be your most economical way to feed, is going to be this bag right here.
And that one 11-pound bag will last a 1,000-pound horse for 60 days or 2 months.
Absolutely.
And if you purchase a case, which would be 2 bags, then you'd have a 4-month supply.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, these bags are vacuum sealed. So
the shelf life is 3 years on the bag itself. So there's it's as fresh as the day it went into the bag.
Absolutely.
When you open the bag. So,
absolutely. Well, thank you again, everybody. Let me check one more time just to make sure we don't have any more questions. A lot of Merry Christmases and Happy Holidays, and the same to you.
Right.
We hope all of you guys have a safe,
very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We look forward to 2022, and we look forward to more of these live events and talking with everyone and experiencing that. Of course, I think next year we're actually going to be traveling a little bit more.
We are. Hopefully we're headed back to being more normal. So we hope that's the case.
So watch these live events. We'll talk about our next events and where we're going to be. I think Mike's doing some traveling. I'm doing some traveling, and so we're going to be all around. So we hope to see you at some of those live events. All right, everybody have a wonderful weekend and a Merry Christmas.
And thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.